Today, our discussion is on the stages of Islam and its implication. The stages of Islam and its implication. From our previous two lessons, we've learned from the holy books of Islam that the Islamic faith has an agenda. The Islamic faith has an agenda. And this agenda is that Islam has to conquer the whole world. All religions, all ideologies, all systems must bow to Islam. This is the Islamic agenda. This is the Islamization agenda. And we read couples of passages from the Quran and the Hadith that clearly articulate this agenda of Islam. So let's revisit some of those passages, then we get the context right, then we present what we want to present today. So our first reference was from the Hadith. And this is the Hadith. The Hadith is considered to be the record of the sayings and the deeds of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Muslims will say. So in the Hadith, Muhammad outlined his agenda, why he was appointed as the messenger of Allah, and the mission that was, or the commission that was given to him to pursue in his prophetic endeavor. So we saw from Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 1, book 2, Hadith number 24. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 1, book 2, Hadith number 24, that the Prophet said that he has been appointed, or he has been ordered by Allah to fight against the people until they testify that none has a right to be worshipped but Allah, and that Muhammad is Allah's apostle. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 1, book 2, Hadith number 24. Narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's apostle, reference to Muhammad, said, I have been ordered by Allah to fight against the people until they testify that none has a right to be worshipped but Allah, and that Muhammad is Allah's apostle, and offer the prayers perfectly and give the obligatory charity. So if they perform that, then they save their lives and property from me, except for Islamic laws, and then their reckoning will be done by Allah. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 1, book 2, Hadith number 24. So Prophet Muhammad in this Hadith says that he has been ordered by Allah to do what? To fight people until they do what? Until they testify La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So according to Muhammad, that was his mission. Christians, what we call Great Commission, this is what in Islam, Muhammad also calls as the Great Commission. This was his Great Commission. I have been ordered by Allah to fight people until they testify that none has a right to be worshipped but Allah, and I, Muhammad, is the apostle of Allah. So this is the agenda of Islam, to ensure that all mankind proclaim the Shahada, to ensure that every human being living on this planet confess that Allah is the only God that is to be worshipped, and Muhammad is Allah's apostle. This is the agenda of Islam, as intimated by Muhammad, the prophet of Islam. Then we also quoted from the Hadith, from the Quran. That is the primary source of authority in Islam. The Hadith is the second most authentic book in Islam. In fact, this Hadith is called Sahih al-Bukhari. Beside the Quran, this is the book that Muslims consider to be the most authentic. That is why they call it Sahih. That means sound, authentic. Sahih Hadith. And this is what the Prophet says. Then in the Quran, in Quran chapter 9 verse 29, Quran chapter 9 verse 29, the Quran, which is believed to be the words of Allah by the Muslims, also indicate to us the agenda of Islam. In Quran chapter 9, verse number 33, we are going to first read 33. So Surah Tawbah, ayah 33, indicate to us the agenda of Islam. The agenda of Islam. So this is what Quran chapter 9 verse number 33 says. It says, It is he who has sent his messenger with guidance and the religion of truth to proclaim it over all religions, even though the pagans may detest it. So it is he, Allah, who has sent his messenger, Muhammad, with guidance and the religion of truth. What is this guidance and the religion of truth? In the Quran, they claim, or it is claimed that this guidance and the religion of truth is Islam. In Surah Imran, ayah 19, the Quran says, in the deen, in the Islam, the religion before Allah is Islam. The religion before Allah is Islam. Then in Quran chapter 3 verse 85, the Quran says, وَمَنِ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. If anyone practices a religion other than Islam, Allah will never accept it of that person. And in the hereafter, he will be in the ranks of those that have lost. So, based on these passages of the Quran, Surah 3, ayah 19, Surah 3, ayah 85, Muslims are totally convinced that Islam is the only path to God, only path to Allah. So outside of Islam, there is no salvation. And in this passage, Surah 9, ayah 33, Quran chapter 9, verse 33, the Quran is saying that Allah has given guidance and religion of truth to Muhammad, his messenger, to proclaim it over all religions. To proclaim it over all religions. So Islam has triumphed. Islam has conquered. Islam must subjugate all systems, all religious systems in the world. And in Islam, it's not just even religion. Any movement, be it political, economic, educational, social, all these things must come to Islam. All these things must submit to Islam. That's the meaning of Islam, submission. So once you submit, then the sword of Muhammad will never touch you. So my beloved, all these passages from the Hadith, from the Quran, clearly indicate that Islam as a system is not for peace. The peace that Islam talks about is the peace that you get when you submit to its control or its mandate or its system. But once you have not submitted to the tenet of Islam, you will never be free. You will never have that peace that it promises or it talks about. So this is the Islamization agenda. So every community in this world, every city in this world, every country in this world, every city in this world, where we have Islam being practiced over there, this is the ultimate agenda it seeks to achieve. That's the ultimate agenda of Islam. Kurom biara a nkramofo ewo ho. Ekurasi biara a Islam som ewo ho. Oman biara a Islam som ho. Botan nyina ne de at the end of the day no, wode Islam som no ejidam oman no, dem kuro no, dem nkrofo no, wode Islam eje oman no na offer. Wode Islam e control bibi biara ewo ho. That is the Islamization agenda or the agenda of Islam. And this is something that we want Christians to be aware of. Because throughout church history, Islam has been able to defeat Christianity in its own territory because of the ignorance of the Christians about this agenda of Islam. So last week, we learned how Islam was able to take over almost all the Bible lands. Palestine, Asia Minor, North Africa. How all these lands that used to be Christian, Judeo-Christian lands were taken over by Islam. Mostly by conquest, by jihad. And this ignorance that enabled Islam to take over all these lands is still persistent in Christians. Christians are ignorant about Islam. Christians are generally uninformed about Islam. And we are using this platform to educate you, our Christian brother, about the Islamic faith. And as I always indicate, the idea is not for you, a Christian, to hate a Muslim. No, that is not even Christianity. Far from that. The idea is for us to be well informed about Islam. So that going forward, we can know the best way of interacting with the Muslims. And I also express a dichotomy between Islam and Muslim. The Islam is the system that controls the Muslim. So some Muslims are innocent human beings. Muslims are innocent human beings. They are like you, a Christian. They are just ordinary human beings like I and you. But the system that controls them is the system called Islam. So it is the Islam that we are saying it doesn't stand for peace as it claims. But does not necessarily mean that every Muslim is not for peace. So this is the dichotomy that I need to make in this discussion. Just as Christianity stands for love, Jesus says, a new commandment I have given you, that you should love one another. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Gospel according to John, chapter number 14. Chapter number 13, verse number 34 to 35. Gospel according to John, chapter 13, verse 34 to 35. The new commandment I, Jesus, I give you, that you should love one another. And by this all will know that you are my disciples. You are my mathetes, if you love one another. This is what Jesus says we should do. But does not necessarily mean that every Christian is putting this into practice. And the same applies to Islam. Muhammad says that he has been ordered by Allah to fight against mankind. So this is the order Muhammad has given, or he was given by Allah, and by extension, all Muslims are ordered by Allah to fight people until they proclaim the Shahada. But there are some Muslims that may not put this idea into practice. They may not adhere to this teaching of Islam. So it's not every Muslim that we are trying to say that go by the tenet or the doctrine of it, even though he is a Muslim. So the Islamic system is not a peaceful system. The Islamic system always involves subjugation. You have to bring others to admit or to submit to the system. So all these passages from the Hadith, from the Quran, indicate to us the agenda of the Islamic faith. Last week, we saw how Islam took over almost all the Bible lands. Then, our first lesson, we saw the mandate that was given to Muhammad according to the Hadith. So today, what we want to discuss is the stages of the Islamization agenda. Even though Islam wants to take over the whole world, Islam says that all religion must be conquered by it. Islam must dominate, conquer, triumph over all religion, all systems. Yet, there are many countries in the world where Islam is not controlling. In fact, they are not Islamic. There are more non-Islamic countries than Islamic countries in the world. There are very few Islamic countries. We have many countries in the world that Muslims have no control over them. But we have Muslims over there, but those Muslims are not in control over those countries. We cannot say those countries are Islamic Republic, just as we have Iran, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Pakistan, Afghanistan, those countries where Muslims are in majority. They control the nation, they control everything. The Sharia is working in those countries. Compared to United Kingdom, United States, Ghana, compared to Kenya, South Africa, all these countries have Muslim population over there, yet Islam is not in control of the country. So the question we are going to unfold or unpack or answer in this episode is that what are the stages of Islam and what implication does it have for non-Muslims, especially we Christians? My beloved, to go straight to the point, the Islamic faith in its purpose or in its pursuit to dominate, to actualize this Islamization agenda operates on two levels or on two stages. I repeat, the Islamic faith or system in its effort to dominate the world, to Islamize the world, to conquer the world for Allah and Muhammad, operates on two levels or stages. The first stage, or the stage one of Islam, is when Muslims are in minority in a community. When Muslims are inferior, they are in minority. They are the minority population in the village, in the city, in the town, in the country. That level is what we call the level one or the stage one of Islam. And these stages that we are going to learn today were the stages that Islam went through. In fact, there were the stages that Muhammad used, the tactics that Muhammad used in taking over almost all the lands of the Jews, the Christians, and the pagans in Arabia. So sometimes, or most of the times, when people talk about Islam not being peaceful, you hear the Muslim dais and apologists, the Dawagandhists, quoting passages from the Quran to show that Islam is a religion of peace. My beloved, Mr. Dominic, you are lying, you are misrepresenting the Quran. You are misinformed about Islam. Islam is a religion of peace. And these beloved ones who quote passages from the Quran to buttress this assertion. And if you understand the whole context, then you get the points that we are going to say. Now, let me read some of these passages. The first passage that a Muslim, anytime that Muslims, people commit terrorism, jihadists commit terrorism in the name of Islam, and people are bashing Islam, that Islam is violent, Islam doesn't stand for peace. You hear these apologists, da'is, quoting these passages. And the most popular among these passages is Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 256. Quran chapter 2, verse 256. Quran chapter 2, verse 256. So if you have your Quran, if you have your Al-Quran with you, kindly open to Quran chapter 2, verse 256. Quran chapter 2, verse 256, and let's read the passage. So this is what the passage says. Quran chapter 2, verse 256. This is what the passage says. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. Whoever rejects evil and believes in Allah has grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks. And Allah hears and knows all things. The passage, or the part or the aspect of this passage that is of importance to us is, let there be no compulsion in religion. The Arabic say, La ikraha fi din. La ikraha fi din. Din is religion. Awesome. Emma enche biara emmo nyamesumu. The Muslims say, you see, the Quran is saying that there should be no compulsion in religion. Islam forbid you forcing someone to become Islam or as become a Muslim. The Quran even says that we shouldn't force anyone to become a Muslim. We should not force anyone to become a Muslim. So you see, so when you see Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Al-Shabaab trying to kill Christians, trying to kill people that are non-Muslims, and they are forcing people to convert to Islam, that is not Islam. And the apologists, this passage clearly supports it. Let there be no compulsion. La ikraha fi din. La ikraha fi din. Let there be no compulsion. So why do you say that Islam is violent? Islam doesn't support what these people are doing. The Quran says, let there be no compulsion in religion. Then another passage that the apologists or the Muslims will quote is Quran chapter number 109, Surah Al-Kafirun. Quran chapter 109, Al-Kafirun. That's the name of the surah. Surah Al-Kafirun, ayah 6, Quran chapter 109 verse 6. This is what the passage says. To you then be your way, and to me mine. In another translation says, to you then be your religion, and to be mine. Yes. To you then be your way, and to me mine. Let me read this translation and see. This is by Maulawi Shel Ali translation. This is the Quran translation by the Ahmadiyya Muslims. So in Quran chapter 109 verse 6, yes, this one says, for you your religion, and for me my religion. For you your religion, and for me my religion. This is what Muhammad said to the unbelievers. Practice your religion, and I also practice my religion. This was a time that there were pagans in Mecca. So the pagans, Muhammad's statement to the pagans was that you can practice your religion, I also practice my religion. I also practice my religion. So when you start from verse 1, in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, say, O ye disbelievers, I worship not that which you worship, nor worship you what I worship. And I am not going to worship that which you worship, nor will you worship what I worship. For you your religion, and for me my religion. And this is very fantastic. Muhammad says that you worship what you worship, I also worship what I worship. You have resolved never to worship what I worship, and I will also not worship what you worship. So worship yours, and let me also worship mine. And let's see this translation by Sahih International Translation of the Quran. Sahih International. So if you're a Christian, just like Christians have several English translations of the Quran, Muslims too have different Quran translation. Yes. Muslims also have different translations of the Quran. Quran chapter 109 verse number 6. Quran chapter 109 verse number 6. Surah Al-Kafirun. This is Sahih International Translation. Quran chapter 109 verse number 6 says, for you is your religion, and for me is my religion. So this one agrees with, it's almost the same as the Maulawi Shel Ali translation. But the Yusuf Ali says, for you be your way and my way. So my beloved, these two passages are peaceful indeed. They are peaceful verses. They are not condoning anyone to force someone to become a Muslim. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Practice your religion, and I also practice my religion. So, if we have passages like this in the Quran, how come we still see people committing terrorism in the name of Islam, forcing people to become Muslims? And we saw from the hadith what Muhammad said he has been appointed to do, to fight people until they proclaim the Shahada. And we read from Quran chapter 9 verse 29, where the Quran says that fight those who do not believe in Allah. So how come we have passages like this in the Quran? How do we reconcile this contradictory statement in Islam, where one says that fight people for them to become Muslims, and where another one says that we shouldn't force people to become Muslims? The key to unraveling this contradiction, or to understanding this disparity or discrepancy, is to know when all these statements were stipulated by Muhammad. I have earlier indicated to you that Islam has two stages. The stage one of Islam is when Muslims are in minority in the country. Then the stage two is when Muslims are now the majority population. They now dominate. They are now more than the non-Muslims. They are now more than the Christians. They are now more than the Jews. They are now more than the pagans. So my beloved, all passages in the Quran that talks about peace, don't force people, were recited by Muhammad when the Muslims were in minority. when he had not gotten much arsenals, much soldiers to fight for him. That is when Muhammad pretended to proclaim or be a preacher of peace. So Quran chapter 2 verse 256 and Quran chapter 109 verse 6 were recited by Muhammad when Islam was in minority. When Islam was in minority. So when Islam was in minority, he also even praised the Christians and the Jews. So if you read Quran chapter 2 verse 62, Quran chapter 2 verse 62, this is what the Quran says. Quran chapter 2. You see, the Quran is not going to praise Christians and all those that worship religions beside Islam. Listen to what the Quran will say about these people. Quran chapter 2 verse 62. This is what the Quran says. This is what the Quran says. Those who believe in the Quran, that's the Muslims, those who believe in the Quran, the Muslims, and those who follow the Jewish scriptures, that's the Jews, and the Christians, that's Christians, and the Sabians. There was a religion in Arabian called, there were some religious group in Arabia known as the Sabians. So those who believe in the Quran, Muslims, those who follow the Jewish scriptures, Jews, those, and the Christians, and the Sabians. Any who believe in Allah and the last day and work righteousness shall have their reward with their Lord. On them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. So according to this passage of the Quran, you can be a Christian, you can be a Jew, you can be a Sabian, you can be a Muslim. Once you believe that there is God, then there is the day of judgment, and you do what is good. This passage of the Quran says that you are going to be saved. You are going to have your reward from your Lord. It means you are going to be saved. My beloved, why did Muhammad praise Christians and all those non-Islamic faith or systems? The reason was that he was in minority. His religion, Islam, was in minority. At this time, Muslims were not in the majority. He was not having enough weapons, soldiers, arsenals to fight to spread Islam. But my beloved, Muhammad used this strategy in Medina. He was being persecuted in Mecca. Then he went to Yathrib, the city which is at the north of Mecca. Jews were inhabiting the city of Yathrib. Later, before it was named or renamed as Medina. When Muhammad went there, the Jews accepted him. They gave him a place of shelter. Then Muhammad preached peace to these Jews, thinking that preaching, that soft way of preaching will let the Jews accept him as the prophet of Allah. Then when he got more military strength, then all these passages that talks about peace changed automatically. So this is the stage one of Islam. And this is the stage, this weapon, this strategy that Muhammad used. When he was in Mecca, when he was in Medina, initially, very peaceful. All his preaching was believe in God, do what is good. Believe in God, do what is good. There's a day of judgment coming. Allah will judge all human beings on the basis of their works. So repent. That was the preaching of Muhammad. So the Meccan surahs, we have a part of the Quran that were revealed recited by Muhammad when he was in Mecca. We call those passages the Meccan surahs. The Meccan surahs are more theological in nature. They are more theological in nature. It talks about judgment day, repent, believe in God, do what is good. These things were said when Islam was in minority. But when Muhammad gathered more strength, gathered more military strength, then these peaceful passages all changed. Now, the thing became force. And that's how we started having passages like Quran chapter 9 verse 29. Remember, chapter 2 verse 25, it says, let there be no compulsion in religion. Quran chapter 2 verse 256. I want you to write down all these passages. Because it's very, very important in your interaction with Muslims. Quran chapter 2, verse 256 says that let there be no compulsion in religion. Then 109 verse 6 says that lakum dinakum waliya din, to you be your religion and to be mine. Don't force someone to become a Muslim. Practice your Christianity and let me also practice my Islam. But when Muhammad got more numbers, got more military strength, now the message became like this. Fight those who believe not in Allah. But initially, let there be no compulsion. Don't force anyone to believe in Allah. Don't force anyone to accept me as a prophet of Allah. Don't force anyone to acknowledge Islam as the only true deen of Allah. But now, fight those who believe not in Allah, nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden, which has been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the jizya pool tax with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Now, the thing has turned to violence. Let there be no compulsion in religion has now turned to be fight those who believe not in Allah. My beloved, these are the two stages of Islam. So, countries like Ghana, the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, South Africa, Kenya, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, where Muslim population is in minority, you don't see this kind of violence that we see in Pakistan. You don't see this kind of violence that is being unleashed in the name of Islam in Afghanistan, in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Libya, in Yemen, against people of other faith. You don't see those kind of violence that is daily unleashed on non-Muslims because of their faith. Christians are killed almost every day in the Islamic world. And there are some that we don't even get any report about it. Go to the Islamic countries, Christianity as a religion is mostly not recognized. You can't even take Bible to most of these countries. You cannot take Bible to this country. Christian missionary activities are banned in most of these Islamic countries. There are few that allow, countries like Dubai do allow foreigners who are Christians some space to even worship. But even that one, you cannot publicly express it. You cannot publicly express your Christianity. You can do it indoors. But when you take Saudi Arabia as a country, the only religion that it recognizes is Islam. Iran, the same. Pakistan, Indonesia, all these countries where Muslims control the political system, the social system, the economic system, the Sharia is what works over there. And under the Sharia, all religions are haram. Christianity is haram. Judaism is haram. Hinduism is haram. So these are the stages of Islam. So if we're a Christian living in a country like Ghana, don't sit in your ignorance and conclude that no, Islam is a religion of peace. It has not gotten to the stage of violence. In stage 1, Ghana here, according to the statistics, Christianity is about 71%, Islam is about 17% or so. So Muslims are in minority, way in minority. So you don't see the presence of Islam here in Ghana. But when the Islamic population get closer to the non-Muslim population, you see signs of the Islamization agenda, which I'm talking about in this lesson. You may be judging me or you may be critiquing me that what I'm saying is not necessary. But if you're a Christian living in Nigeria, you understand the impact of this Islamization agenda. That the Islamic system is a totalitarian system. It doesn't call for tolerance. It doesn't call for coexistence. Oh, let's all live together. It doesn't know anything like that. It's a totalitarian, religio-political system that seeks to control all the affairs of mankind. So this is the Islamization agenda. These are the stages of the Islamization agenda. Stage 1, when Muslims are in minority. Stage 2, when Muslims are now in majority. Minority versus majority. When we are in minority, let's pretend to be peaceful. And the Quran said this in Quran chapter 8, verse 61. Listen to this passage of the Quran. Quran chapter 8, verse number 61. Quran chapter 8, verse number 61. This is what the Quran says. But if the enemy incline towards peace, you also incline towards peace. Listen again, oh my beloved, with all due respect. This is what the Quran is saying. Quran chapter 8, verse 61, Surah Al-Anfal, the Quran says that, but if the enemy incline towards peace, you also incline towards peace. This is talking about stage 1 of Islam. When Muslims are in minority and certain people that Muslims see as enemies want to come to fight them, the test is that, the command is that they should incline towards peace. They should accept that offer of peace. Oh, let's all live in peace. We are all one people. Christians and Muslims, we all emanate from Abraham, the father of Isaac and Ishmael. So let's all live in peace. The Muslims will accept it. Let's all live in peace. They will accept it. But when the situation changes, when the Muslims are now the uppermost, when they are now the majority, listen to the command the Quran gives to the Muslims. We see this in Quran chapter 47, ayah 35. Surah Al-Muhammad, ayah 35. Surah Al-Muhammad, ayah 35. Quran chapter 47, verse 35. 47, verse 35. 47, verse 35. This is what the Quran says. Be not weary and faint-hearted, crying for peace. Be not weary and faint-hearted, crying for peace, when you are the uppermost. When you are the uppermost. When you are the uppermost. So when Muslims are the uppermost, they should not call for peace. Let's subjugate them. Now we have the strength, we have the men, we have the guns, we have the weapons, we have the military strength behind us. So don't call for peace. This is the stage 2 of Islam, when the Muslims are now in majority. So my beloved, to draw the curtains for today's lesson, anytime you hear Muslims quote passages like, let there be no compulsion in religion, La ikraha fi din, lakum dinakum waliya din, they are saying all these things in communities, in societies where the Muslims are in minority. Muslims will never say this in Pakistan. They will never say this in Saudi. They will never say this in Iran. They will never say this in Oman. Because they are in majority. Over there, the Sharia works. All non-Muslims are considered as kafirs. They are second-class citizens. But in countries like Ghana, where it's secularism, democracy, Western democracy, equality before the law, all these things works, and the Muslims are just minority, they will pretend, as Muhammad pretended, that they are for peace. We are for democracy. But when their population outnumber the non-Muslims, then they will try to impose the Islamic system on all of us. My beloved, so this is the religion that we are dealing with here, called Islam. This is the system. This is the Islamic system. It is violent, totalitarian, domineering, want to take over all systems, every political ideology, every religious system, every educational system, every economic system, every social system must submit. This is the agenda of the Islamic faith. And this has huge implication for those of us who are not Muslims, or those of us who are non-Muslims. So, what should we do with this message? We are not calling for Christians to hate Muslims, but to love the Muslims. This calls on us, this behooves on us to share Christ with the Muslims. That's the only solution. That is the only solution to check this agenda from being materialized. Sharing Jesus, the love of Christ, with our Muslim neighbor, presenting the gospel to the Muslim, so that the love of Jesus will envelop them, so that the love of God will fill their heart, and see all human beings as creatures of God, and not butcher people because of Islam. It's my prayer that as a Christian, your love for Muslim will be more. Henceforth, you are going to share Jesus with Muslims, talk to Muslims, pray for Muslims to see the light of the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is what we are called to do. We are not called to fight Muslims. We are not called to hate Muslims, ostracize Muslims, call them names. No. That is far from what we are doing. But our prayer that through this means you'll be enlightened, you'll be well informed about Muslims, so that we can all love them and share Jesus with them.